Hello, this is a tutorial on using creases along with subdivision surface modifiers. We're going to make a little camera robot with two wheels. To start out, let's delete the default cube, and let's hit Shift A, M, and then C to add a new one. Then let's go to modifiers and add a subdivision surface. Usually 2 works pretty good. In here it says make sure this use creases is checked. It usually always is, but you might want to make sure it is. And usually it's also good to shade auto smooth. Then let's get started. If you want to, let's make this a little more cube shaped, so the shortcut for this is Shift E. It's kind of like scaling per se, except you just, to explain what creases do, is the subdivision surface modifier, it just took a cube and turned it into a sphere by smoothing it. But a crease can undo that transform to a certain extent. Like for example, if I select these 3 edges and do that, basically pulls that geometry back to its original position. And as we start modeling, you'll see how that can be an advantage. Now a good doing this can work good, but a really good way to make sure the edges are rounded is in setting all of the edges individually. I did that by hitting I, and usually it'll do this after hitting I once, then hit it again, which will make it do all of the faces individually. And then that's good, and then we can select this. I think I'm going to make it a little camera right here and set it some more. Extrude it by hitting E. I'll do a tutorial on the basics of Blender soon. And then that, and then I can hit Shift E. There we go. Now I can hit 2 and then Alt to loop select that. I guess I could probably bevel it too a bit maybe. I'm going to go here, size it up a little bit, extrude it out a bit, get rid of the crease. I think this needs to be a little higher resolution, so I'm going to pump it up to 3. Now it looks a little better. I think I want to add a little light right there. To do that, I'm going to, I think I want to just add one by hitting Shift A, M. Then I'm going to do a UV sphere, RX90, GY, tab, and 3. You hit 3 on the numpad to do this side view, 1 on the numpad to do the front, 7 on the numpad to do top, 9 on the numpad will just do the opposite side, or you can hit Control 7 to do the bottom, or just 7 to do the top. And then some of the other buttons on the numpad, like 6, 4, 8, 2, can navigate the viewport. Sometimes it's easier doing that. Let's go and let's delete this. Delete faces. A shortcut to go in between face, edge, and vertex select is 1, 2, and 3. It's pretty useful doing that. whenever I make a tutorial, I'll also do one on gizmos for those who prefer to use gizmos. This is going to be like a little micro-sized robot, so it's going to be really small. I'm just going to stick that LED there. I think that looks okay. Maybe I can scale it down a bit like that. No, it doesn't look good that way. That looks pretty good. I forgot to save this. I'll save it later. Inset ES and then X to extrude it that way. I think I'm going to use a crease on these parts here. I think I might move that up a bit so that the robot itself kind of hangs down a bit more for the weight distribution, so it'll just be two wheels on the sides. That looks pretty good. I'm going to curate the materials after I get the basis there. Got a little bit of a roundish head. I think for the bottom I want more of a like that shape. Again, you can subdivide. You can make a line here easily without having to do a bisect, just by selecting two lines like this, then right-clicking, then hitting S, which will subdivide it. I'm gonna move it down a bit, then bevel. Kind of got the little skid plate shape I wanted. That's just going to be the basic little axle. I'm going to make it a little thicker by hitting S and then Shift X, which will scale the mesh there on every axis except for the X axis, which thus does this. Make it a little wider. This is the basic shape of our robot now. Now let's start with the wheel. I'm going to move this just to the side. Let's set the origin of that to the 3D cursor, because something useful is you can move this object over here. Then if you right click, then hit N, and then hit U. Wait, no. If you right click, hit N, and then hit T, it'll snap the object to the cursor. But if you hit U instead of T, it will snap the cursor to the object. So I'm just going to move that out of the way for now, along with this little LED. Actually, I'm going to just move this on the X-axis. Don't want to forget that LED. Then Shift A, M. Sometimes cylinders, they can work good sometimes with subdivision surface modifiers, but sometimes they don't work that well, but I'm going to use it. they'll do this sometimes. But something that can help make it work a bit better. First, I'm going to scale it down a bit on the x-axis. But something that will kind of get rid of this ugliness is if you inset it a bit, it'll get rid of some of that. Sometimes it can be good to use a cube or something else depending on what you're wanting to do. But I'm just going to make a wheel, so scale it down on the x-axis. Let's add a loop cut. I hit Control R. You can scroll your mouse wheel up or down to add more subdivisions or not. I'm just going to use 2. And then Enter. You can move it side to side if you want, but I'm not, so just hit Enter again. If you hit Alt and you click down, it will loop select. And sometimes you have to just keep clicking on faces for it to select the kind of loop you want. And then S, Shift X. There we go. Now we got our little round toy tire shape per se. And inset a bit, SX. Then Shift E, X. Then take off the Shift E. Inset a little more. Then S, X. I think now I'm going to add little sprockets. So what I want to do is I'm going to duplicate that and enter. You duplicate by hitting Shift and then D. And then to separate it to make it another object, I'm going to hit P, then S. Then now let's go back to our original object. Let's take those two faces. If you right click, hit L, and then B. You can't see it now because of the other object in the way. Okay, there we go. Oh, just a second. Okay. Make sure both faces are selected. Then hit right click, L, and then B, which then does that to it. It basically takes those meshes there and connects them together. That is an add-on for Blender that comes with it. It's called Loop Tools. You can enable it here, and it really works good. It's got other ways too, like it has it to where you can add a circle by using a square. Or it's right here. It's got all these different stuff. It's Bridge, the one that we just used to do this. Before it, you would have had to do like some weird. It would have had to fill the faces individually, and it just works better this way. Now let's take those sphere here that we duplicated, and let's hit S, Shift X. It's going to be the center of the sprocket. Make sure and Control A scale, it will apply the scale. That way, if you happen to do bevels, they'll work a little more accurate. Okay, sometimes if you just hit B instead of hitting L and then B, it'll work better. I don't know why. That's one of the things you gotta do when learning Blender, is sometimes half the stuff you learn is just by playing around. That's how I learned what the creases did in Blender. Then inset this a bit more. G, X, S, Shift X. You can also add loop cuts to these sides to make it a little more flatter there. I'm going to make a sprocket now. Oh. A good thing to do is to make sure and save often. I haven't yet saved this, so I have a specific folder for Blender. I'm going to name this Camera Robot 01 Marketplace. I'm just going to do Camera Robot 01. Then saved. And as you go through your build, you can just hit Control S to save more. It's nice because it's good to save often. I'm going to take off that crease a bit. Just going to inset instead so it looks a little prettier, not too sharp. Saved again. Now let's add the sprockets. I have a way of duplicating them so you don't have to. You can just duplicate them and rotate them at the same time. I'll show you. First, let's make them. Let's use a cube for it. Let's scale it down a bit. Let's add a subdivision surface. I think 2 could work. Then shade smooth. Nope. Then hit Control A and then scale to apply the scale. Now let's inset the bottom and top. You can hit Shift Z to enter wireframe mode, and then hit Shift Z again to return to the render mode you had before. Let's scale this down a bit. Let's move that up a bit. Scale this a little more on the wide track. Looks okay. Maybe a little less. Then let's scale this down on the wide track. Looks pretty good. Then let's select the front and the back. Then inset a little bit. Then hit ESX to do that. Then hit Control plus to select a little more. Then hit SY. There we go. Let's select these 2 corners. Sometimes it's good to go into rendered mode just to see how your model looks and if it looks good enough. And I feel that looks pretty good enough. If you want to change your rendering mode pretty quickly, just hit Z. Then if you can see, you can either go to one of these and then click, or you can see the numbers on here. If you hit the number at the top of your keyboard, like I want to go to solid, so I'll hit 6. It goes to that mode. Before we go on to duplicate the sprockets, let's scale this down on the X track a bit. That isn't letting me loop select this, so then hit select one of them, then hit Control and then select another, or let's just shift select all of them, then SX. Okay, that didn't work. And let's just select the center face there, and then hit Control plus to select the other ones around it, then hit SX. I see those ones need selected, so then just hit 3 on your numpad and box select like that, and there we go. Oh, another way to move around your viewport besides using this gizmo here is hold down the middle mouse button and then move your mouse, and then that will rotate you around the camera, which is nice. Now, we do not have to move the origin of the object to the cursor. If you see up here, you can click this and then select 3D cursor as the rotation point. Or, you can hit the period on your keyboard, and then again you can see the numbers here, and to rotate around the cursor, you hit 6. Then hit Shift D, R, X, 10. No, 45. There we go. That was duplicate R, X, 45. And then what it does is it duplicates the object, then it rotates it along the x-axis, but since we're using the 3D cursor as the rotation point, it does this. That's why we want the wheel at the center here. Let's scale these down on the x-axis a little more. Then you can repeat that process, and so you don't have to keep doing it. Hit Shift and R, and what that does is it repeats the last process you've done, and what that does is it just keeps duplicating those sprockets and rotating them. That's especially useful if they're very tiny ones and you just rotate them by 10 or 30. That could get old if you just keep hitting the same thing over and over. With Shift R, you can actually hold down Shift R and it'll just keep doing it over and over and over, which is nice. Then if you want to go back to the median point, or the normal way of rotating, you hit P and then you hit period and then 8. Then I'm going to take these sprockets, join them together. I'm going to finish this hub here. I think that's pretty good. Then let's join that. Before I keep going, I'm going to take the rim here and scale it down on the x-axis a bit. Let's hit Control R to make a loop cut there. Oops, I messed it up. Control R, enter, and enter again. Same thing on the other side. Then I do a loop select of the first one, and then hit SX, then S Shift X. Kind of getting the shape I want. Kind of like that shape. Now let's join that together. To join it, I hit Control and J. Then let's move this a bit over here. Then hit N, T, and select that and hit N, T. Go to front view. Another way to go to front view besides using the numpad is go up here and select and click on this. Or you can click on the other ones here. On this gizmo over here. I'm going to scale this up a bit. Let's scale it up a little more. Because this is a tiny robot, but it's got to have these big wheels. You can also hit Shift Z so it can be easier to line stuff up better. Looks pretty good. Let's move it out a little bit. It's pretty good. Then let's use the 3D cursor as our origin point again, and hit duplicate RZ 180. Then go back to the median point rotation. And there we go, this is our robot so far. I'm not done just yet. Well, one reason, we have to create materials. I'm going to rig it, but first, I want to create an antenna. Let's take this and set it SX. Scale it up a little bit. EZ SZ0 SX and inset again, and then E. That's going to be a spot for antenna. I don't think the antenna is going to be too complicated. I think it's just going to be a pointy object. So let's Shift A, M. Let's use let's use a cylinder. Nice simple shape. We are not going to use the the Subdivision Surface modifier. We are just shading it auto smooth. First, let's place this into position. Hit Shift. Well, first let's select this hole and make it a little more correct. Make a little more round. And let's Shift Z, G. Hit G to move. And let's scale this down. While you're moving, you can hold the Shift button down, or when rotating, to where you move your cursor more to where you can get more of an accurate thing there. Make sure and hit Control A scale and Control A rotation to apply the rotation and scale. And let's move the base of the antenna down. Let's move this down a bit too. E Shift X, RX, E Shift X. There's actually better ways of doing this using curves, but I forgot that, and I've already started, so let's just keep going. Then we're going to hit M and then A, which will merge those together. But that looks rather ugly, so instead, let's just bevel it You can control the amount of bevels by rotating your mouse wheel. G-Shift-X to move that out a bit. Let's do a little less. There we go. Let's see what this thing looks like so far. This looks like a little racer, kinda. Okay. Let's keep going. I think the modeling is done. Now let's do the materials. Let's make a new material. I think I want to do like a let's do like a matte black body, the same material that will be used for the wheels. And then let's do like a matte blue plastic for these little fender-like things here. So let's do black rubber. You can hit preview here, so you can just make the material here. You can do all black, but I've been taught that not everything is an exact color in real life, and we want to reach we want it to be realistic, so drag it down to be black, but not all the way. I'm not going to do any metallic because this is going to be a little flimsy material per se. You can make your materials any way you want. You can do whatever color scheme you want. I'm just making mine the way I want them. In fact, for the blue to be the exact same, I'm going to first make the next one, then go to shading. You can hit Control Space Bar to fully enter any workspace and fully exit that workspace. Go hit this little beach ball shape here, go to black rubber, select this, then hit Control C, then go to the blue plastic, delete that node, hit Control V, and then connect that BSDF to the surface. Let's make this a little bit of a blue. I want it like a light blue, so I'm going to drag the green and blue up like that. I want it to be a little lighter. Then let's go to the layout, and then let's apply the material. Then you can hit Control Plus till it selects all of that. Then go to blue plastic and hit Assign. That's that so far. I think I want a bit more of a, I don't know, maybe a bit more of a shiny look to it. Not metallic. How about a little less roughness? Maybe a bit of specular. There we go, that looks okay. Maybe not the exact color I would have chosen, but it works. Now let's work on the LED. Hit New. Let's name it Red Light. Then go to this principal BSDF and click it and choose Emission. I'm gonna set it to make sure it's red. Set the strength to 10. I found that that's a nice even number, and it works good for this. Now let's hide the wheels now. I'm going to make the metal material that's going to be the axle, and I believe I'm also going to use it to cover in this cavity. But first, let's make the lens material. Let's name this black lens. This I'm going to make it all the way black. It's just glass. And drag the roughness all the way down. Do I need to change the specular? I think that looks good. A little bit of metallic. Make it feel like it's heavy. There we go, there's the lens. Now let's work on the axle. Let's name this silver. Then up the metallic. More. Play with the roughness. Maybe a bit of the specular. I think I need more metallic. Just gotta play with it a bit. That works. Now let's go to the robot. And first, let's assign this area first. An easy way to do this is to select the lens and hit Control plus, then Control plus again. Oops. There we go. Then go to the black lens material and hit deselect. Now go to the silver material and hit assign. There we go, we have that little cavity there. Also, I'm going to go to the antenna and give it the silver material. That looks okay. Now let's assign the axles. Okay, I think the robot itself is done with the materials part. Now, let's do it with the wheels. Let's delete this one so we can just duplicate this one and do that. So, this one's using, I'm just going to use this material here that Blender already made. You just make a new material the same way. Let's name it white plastic rim. There we go. Now let's play with the roughness. It's supposed to look plasticky, so you don't want any metallic. But I want it to be a shiny plastic. There we go, there's that. Wait, no. Let's select all the sprockets in the center of the wheel, and then hit Control L to select all that, and hit Shift and Alt. To undo, you hit Control Z, then hit Control plus, and again. Then you can hit Control and I, and that'll opposite this. That'll, you know what? Let's see what it says up here. Invert. It inverts the selection. Then let's add that black rubber that we use for the body and assign it. Now we have the wheel, so let's go and rotate this. And that's the little robot right now. Now let's just do a quick little rigging of him. I'm not going to do his antenna. I don't need to. It looks a little plasticky, so it doesn't have to move really. I'm just going to make a root and one for each wheel. So let's save, then select each wheel in the body. Make sure and select the antenna, but make sure the body is the main selection. Then Control J. It'll join everything together. Let's assign the vertex groups. Let's make the root Let's select half of this wheel, and then shift, and then select half of this one, and hit Control L for link. Then hit Control I, so then now the whole body selected. Oh, I forgot to join the LED. There we go. Now, there we go, and hit Assign. Sometimes to make sure that the group has all the everything assigned the way I want it to, I will hit deselect and select to make sure that'll select or deselect the mesh of the vertex group. Now let's do the left wheel. To select that, I go to wireframe mode, select half of this to make sure I don't select the axle, then hit Control L. That selects all the spokes and the center of the wheel. Let's name this group, this vertex group, left underscore wheel. Just simple. It's just a cool little robot. And let's do the same on the opposite side. Right underscore wheel. Assign. This is all for the vertex group part. Now let's make the armatures for it. Let's go and hit Shift A, then A, which will add the armature. I'm just going to use this one added as the base or the root bone. Just for fun, a good way of getting stuff accurate. Let's take the wheel hub here, select it, duplicate it, and then hit P and then S to make a new object. I said that earlier. Then right click, hit O, and then M. It'll set the origin to the center of mass. Then right click again, hit N, and then U. Then delete the hub that we just made. What I'm doing here is I'm making a good spot to snap the new bone we're going to make. Then hit Shift A, and then it automatically puts it there. You can make sure it rotates around the cursor and then do 90 by doing that part there. Now let's hit N and then W. No, that doesn't work there. N and then W, which will move the cursor to the center of the world. Now let's take that bone there and hit duplicate RZ 180. Don't forget to make sure the pivot point is around the cursor. There we go. It's correct on both sides. Before we name the bones, let's parent both to the root. To parent it, select both bones first, and then select the top end of the root bone. Then hit Control P. And for this specific robot here, hit Keep Offset. And I'll show you what happens when we hit Connected by hitting C. That's what we don't want. We want to parent it by keeping the offset. And to do that, we hit K. Now let's name the bones. To name, you can just hit F2 on your keyboard. I'll do that to name this the root. And then another way to name it is to go down here, and you can name it here. But easy, fast way is just hit F2. you want to make sure the name here for the bone is the exact same name of the vertex group. Exactly, like punctuation, lettering, underscores, capitalization, just make sure it's the same. This can break, this can make it or break it. Now name the corresponding wheel. Now let's go select the robot, go to modifiers. Since we're done with everything here, let's just go and apply the subdivision surface modifier. That apply button I just pushed, that is an add-on that comes with Blender. You just go to add-ons, type in the search bar modifier tools, it'll pop up, hit the check mark, and then you'll get that. Now let's add 3 armature modifiers. You just name them to the corresponding, name them to the object, which is the armature we're using, and the vertex group. Now let's go to the pose mode and see if it works. Make sure your pivot point is set to median point. Now it's rotating correctly. And if I select the root bone, it will rotate the whole robot, including the wheels. And this is the end of the video. In the next video, or in an upcoming video, I'm going to show how to import this robot into Unreal Engine and make it drivable or be a pawn. And I'm going to include this robot on the Epic Games Marketplace as well. And this is the end of the video. Well, see you next time. Before I end this tutorial, I'd like to show something that shows how powerful or how much you can use the Subdivision Surface modifier with pretty much anything, because surprisingly I actually didn't use any creases for this cup on the left here. This cup on the right here has no Subdivision Surface modifier. What it's using is a bevel modifier, and this is what it looks like without it. The cup looks okay, but there's not that much, it doesn't really bend the background that much, but when you go to this cup over here, it has the look and feel of an actual cup. And to show the craziness of the Subdivision Surface modifier and how much it can assist your builds, this is what the cup looks like with no Subdivision Surface modifier. And if I wanted, I could go in here and add creases like right here. Then it'll look like that. Another thing that can help and assist you when modeling is you can add bevels and loop cuts to kind of control the shape of your object. And sometimes if you want to inset, like for example to make the hole here, I would inset it twice. Like for example, if I dissolve this edge right here, it just looks like that. But it looks better with that bit of a rounded curve. Has that thick, it looks like thick glass. If you'd like me to do a tutorial on how to make this cup, including the material for it, please leave in the comments your opinion on it. And This is the tutorial on how to use Creases along with a Subdivision Surface modifier to assist your builds. See you next time. Please like and subscribe so you won't miss the modeling of this robot here, and so I'll come out with new videos, because if you like and subscribe, then I'll know that people are watching the channel and that you'll want to see more content. I don't know for sure what to do after this build right here. I think I want to do some kind of sci-fi vehicle or walking tow truck or a little small robot assistant. I don't really know for sure, but again, please like and subscribe and hit the notification icon so you won't miss the modeling of this robot. See you then.